providing analysis of the Communist Party, how we see the cause of the problem and the exit to this situation, and how to continue our revolution in Sudan. I will try to be short in my talk so you can ask more, because you know which area you need more information about and stuff. Yeah. Okay, Sudan we got our independence in 1956 from the British colony, and it wasn't like the struggle to the independence was. There was some negotiation part of it. There were no any armed movement to get the independence, except in the early 1920. We had an armed movement, but they were crushed very quickly by the British at that time. And since then, they were just very peaceful, very reactionary, some of them even, from the right-wing leaders of the Sudanese society. The Communist Party established in 1946, so during the colonization. And the unions, the first union was a working, the railway union was also established in 1948. And these two elements, like the union and the Communist Party, they were part of they shared the independence. They have some effect on the independence and stuff, but not very strong. These people were very young. Like when the history you read, they were like the general secretary of the party. When he became the general secretary, he was 23 years old. So he's one of the main. 23.
23.
Yeah, he was killed after that in 1971, but he was very young. Even when he died in his 40s, that's his age and stuff. So that, like the beginning of the movement, most of the leftists, they were very young students. They were mainly students, but they aligned to the working class movement. So even the Communist Party was established in a city. It's called Akbara. It's a working class city. This is the British. They decided that city to be the main city for railway, and so the students they were studying in Egypt. They got in touch with the communist movement in Egypt. They came back to Sudan in their holiday, and they went to this city, and they decided they quit their university. They didn't even continue studying. They decided to reside in that city and build the Communist Party. So with the working class people. So what happened? They stayed there. They recruited workers, and they announced the establishment of the Communist Party in Sudan. That was in 1946. So this is just the introduction very quickly. So after the independence, in 1958, we had the first military coup. And that the coup was, the main reason for the coup was due to the intervention of the USA in Sudan. Eisenhower, I don't know if you know, the Eisenhower, the US president, at that time they were trying to start to have some influence in Sudan. So, but the Communist Party and the unions, they were against this type of negotiation and agreement. And at that time we had one member in the parliament, and inside the parliament they were making noises, and outside organizing protests against the agreement with the USA. So all that led to the coup. The coup was pro the US agreement and stuff like this to stop the people movement, and yeah. The coup continued for 6 years. We had our first, we call it revolution, but as just a word, but we know in the party literature it's not a revolution. It's like an uprising, but it's called, we call it October, it's in October 1964. And we call it the October Revolution, which is similar to the Soviet one. But So, like, not just us, the communists, this is the Sudan, like, as the Sudanese literature, they call it the revolution. And that uprising in 1964 was very, like, at that time, the Communist Party developed the method of what we call the theory of revolution, or Sudan and stuff. This is all before the war, because now everything is a little bit different, or not a little bit, but yeah. But at that time, the Communist Party developed the theory of revolution, which is related to our own conditions, understanding our situation, understanding our working class, and it's not strong, by the way, because as a third world country, the production is not like mass, the factories and stuff, and there is like the sector of industrial sector is not very big. The farming and agriculture is it's bigger, and so we have a very massive like decent movement, or like even as a way of living, they are more than the working class, and so we understand that like how different the differences between the like the weakness and the strong, the strengths of the working class and the other movements. And the party called for the strike. Like the theory is based on unionizing our movement and general strike, political general strike. That's how we defeat anything. So the party, and this is how the party keep working. Like it's to organize people, to get them unionized, and also to build the movement, the political movement inside the union. Like the unions in Sudan is not just for the condition of the work as here. You know, here it's just like union is just to demand increase of wage or solving problems with the owner of the business or something, or pulling or whatever. In Sudan, most of the unions, their main thing is the political agenda. Like they want to advance the political situation toward, like, you can say democracy, liberal, even bourgeois democracy and stuff. It's just to move from a military regime to a democracy. That's like when you talk union, that's everyone inside the union, they know this is their agenda, plus the other things, like the condition of the working people and to advance it, and yeah, and like the welfare of their own union and the workers. So that's the method the Communist Party keep built on, the unionizing and general strikes to make a change, plus the protest and all the other things and stuff. But we don't call for armed. That's the main thing. We don't call for, like at that time, the armed struggle. It's not absolutely we are against any armed struggle. It's just from understanding our situation, the method to win, it's by unionizing and general strike. No armed struggle is involved. That was very clear for us. Like we don't support any, and at that time there were no any even talk about armed struggle and stuff, because people don't really need it at that stage. Yeah. So and the first government as a result of that revolution was very lefty, and the government was established from union movement. Like the unions, they have representative in the cabinet, so they became ministers from working class, railway working class, they have a minister. The farmers and peasants, they have a minister representing their union movement in the government. But because the nature of that government was very progressive, because the Communist Party had so much influence in the unions movement, the right-wing reactionary, they just moved in and tried to defeat that government. So they declared like early election. They were like very out of struggle inside the thing, and we had the election. The party had about 15 members in the parliament at that election, And but then what happened? They not even a year later, they accused the party by being like atheist. So Sudan is a Muslim country in general. In South Sudan, which is now they split in 2011, but they were part of Sudan. They are not. They are like Christian and animist beliefs, but the majority of Sudan they are Muslim. So the reactionary movement they use the religion to stop the spread of the progressive and the communist ideas in the society. And we are accused by being atheist as part of Marxism and their thinking of and stuff. And so we, the members have been sacked from the parliament of the party, and we become illegal party.
When was that?
65.
65.
1965. And they attacked the party. They were like a crazy moment at that time. But in 1967, the Constitutional Court they decide this is illegal. Like the decision of the parliament was based on very illegal thing and stuff, and they have to reinstate the members. But the parliament didn't care. The government didn't care and said, we are not going to do this. So within that time, this situation and also the party at that time, we used to have members inside the army. That's now, like since there is some changes happening in the in the way the party organized themselves. So and there were a lot of members inside of the Communist Party, a lot, like very in a very high level in the army. But they did in 19, and not just the Communist Party, the Nasserism. I don't know if you know about Jamal Abdel Nasser. He's the Egyptian president. Is like a nationalist Arab movement. A little bit has some elements of social justice and socialism and stuff, but nationalist socialism, not like socialist as we understand. So he had like the elements of being a lefty movement, anti-imperialist movement, and they like Egypt had a war against Israel in 1956 and 1967. That's the time. So that's the nature of the Egyptian like national Arab socialist anti-imperialism and stuff. So this movement also affected the army, the people inside the army. And so in due to that situation, the political situation, when they kicked out the communists from the parliament and stuff, the army itself, they had a coup in 1967. So we had the uprising 64, 69, there is another coup. That coup at the beginning was lefty, like has socialism, slogans and good relations with Soviet Union and all these things, but it was not our coup. It's not the Communist Party coup. It was controlled by the nationalists, like Arab nationalist groups. And so I'm gonna just show this bit. And so I jump to the wars bit and stuff. But I'm just showing this to explain how our party grows and the effects of the Communist Party in the Sudanese politics. So that coup continued, and in 1971, they were like the coup tendency became against the Communist Party members inside because 3 of the council, the revolutionary council of that coup, were Communist Party members. They were army officers, so they were kicked in 1970 out of the council, and because they are communists, that's the reason. Because they are communists, they are not wanted by the army at that time. So the army, the communist members inside the army, they organized another coup against that coup. Inside, this is in 1971. So they were very strong at that time. The coup was very peaceful. The president, they were in a meeting like this. They were sitting, the security inside the arms are all communists. So they just say, okay, you stop the meeting, you are under arrest. That's it. That's how the coup was done. They were already working in the thing and stuff. So, but the coup didn't success for other reasons, and the intervention of Egypt, Libya, and the US and stuff. And the British, they were against that. Coup and stuff. So, and we got defeated. That's when the leadership of the party were arrested and killed. Like our main, like the historical leaders of the party and the army. There were a lot of killing at that time, and a lot of arrests. Thousands of the communists were in the prison for long years, and so. After that, continue in April '85, we have another uprising through the same methods, like general strikes, the methods that the party built among the union since the beginning of the independence and stuff. And but in '89, we had an Islamic coup, which led us, the Sudanese, you see here, that became a refugee for that coup during in 1989. It's an Islamist coup. And so I'm not going to talk a lot about this one, but so I can just come to the current situation. And in 2000, before we come to the uprising, it had been in 2018, 2019. But we were a different movement, like resistance movement in between 1989 until 2018. So one of the main biggest one, it happened in September 2013, and there were a lot of people were like protesters killed. The reason for that one was the military plus the shortage of petrol and cost of living, high cost of living and stuff. So it was very massive protest in the capital city, and the regime at that time used these forces to stop the growth of the movement, which the forces, they are militia. It's a militia. They are like criminal people in west of Sudan. They steal. They didn't have any other things. So they were used to fight on behalf of the government in the war in west of Sudan, in Darfur. And and they being brought to Khartoum, to the capital city at that time during this uprising, and they killed more than 250 young. They were very young people. 250 people were killed on that time, September 2013. But as a reward for this militia, in 2013, the previous regime, legalized that militia. At that time, they didn't have any legal frame. What are they and stuff? They just use them as just people killing and fighting and stuff. By 2013, they being legalized as an armed body. It's called Rapid Support Forces, and they have a law. The law was passed through parliament of that regime, and they have a complete structure of an army. And they don't even know how to read or write, these people. They just criminals, like literally criminals. And so they became, and since then, they reside in the capital city, and they build their militia in different areas in Sudan. Because at the beginning they were only in the west of Sudan, and they are very tribal-based type of recruits. They recruit their members from certain so-called Arab tribe, and I'm mentioning this because they are the major factor in the current situation. So in 2019, December, we start another uprising against the regime, the Islamist regime, using the same methods: strikes, protesting on a daily basis, despite we didn't have a legal union, because the government and the regime at that time changed the unions, and they were very controlled unions. So they were an alternative type of organization for, it's not a union because they are not elected bodies. They're just activists within certain type of professions, like doctors, teachers, lawyers, journalists, everything. And because they are activists, they are known. They're activists, they have a history of being arrested, being all these things. So they are respected inside the thing. So those people organize themselves and they just declared like some group, like initiative of a group of like initiative for union for doctors, initiative union for engineers, and they decided to form one body, and that body led that change, and and they were very strongly. They got so much the relation with the movement was very strong. They respected them, they trusted them, so they managed to be like they act like a union, elected union, despite there is lack of the democratic process and stuff due to the military regime, and yeah. So unsuccessfully they managed to change from that like the Islamist regime, but the change was not completely successful. So what happened in that change is the military, they did a coup against, like, the president at that time is named Umar al-Bashir. And so what happened the protest went from December 2018 until almost June, after June, like there were a daily protest. In April 6 until June 3rd, there were sit-in in Khartoum in front of the quarter of the army, and the sit-in was demanding transition to a democratic government. That's the main demand. And the slogans of that of the movement, of the whole protest, they were حرية سلام وعدالة, which mean freedom, peace, and justice. And this slogans, this is everyone on the street, this is everyone you ask in Sudanese. It doesn't have to be lefty or anything. They will tell you this is the demands of that movement, of the revolution. These demands were the Communist Party in our conference, the 6th conference. This is the slogan of the party, and this is where I'm holding this, writing my notes. This is a Communist Party. This is document issued in 2010 and has the same demand. Like if you read here, you see peace and freedom and justice. It's the same because the street, like it's just the strongness of or not just strongness of our members. It's not that, it's like we can read the needs of the movement. That's the whole idea. It's not because we have like a mass membership. We don't have mass membership, the Communist Party in Sudan. We are not that strong in terms of membership and stuff. But in terms of understanding, reading, and representing the needs of the streets, we are the most advanced group in Sudan in that sense. So what happened in April 11, the army plus the militia leader, they were appointed by Umar al-Bashir, the previous regime president, to protect him. They has called the Security Committee. He established them, he appointed them as a security committee to protect him. So what they did a coup against him. They took him, they arrested him, and they took the power. And they said to the people, to the protest, we are pro you, we are the pro protest, but like yeah. So and they start to negotiate with the civilian groups, like including the Communist Party, like every group, because there were different groups, civilian parties, the unions, and stuff. All these groups, they were organized in one umbrella. It's called Freedom and Change. Freedom and Change Forces. That's the name of the umbrella. This umbrella includes different for like including our party and stuff. And so they start to negotiate to establish a government. So during that time, before they start the negotiation started since the 11th of April when they took power. But the sitting was continuing, didn't stop. Because they didn't do the demand, the transition. In June 3, the regime, the same people like the militia and the army, they attacked and they committed a big massacre for the city. They killed, nobody even knows the numbers. It could be more, like definitely it's more than 800 people. They were killed on the city. They throw live bodies inside the Nile River. Like it just was very something like yeah, it's unbelievable. And this is the first time we face this type of aggression from the army and stuff. Usually the killing will be like in the protest and stuff like this, but this is like very like a war operation. You know the way they are targeted, and it's all recorded in videos and stuff like yeah. So. But after that, the negotiation was it's continued through like foreign pressure. They tried to the party withdraw from any type of negotiation, and we say we are not part of this. That's since like we didn't continue on the negotiation. So, but the other forces they continued, which is the right-wing groups. They continued. They formed very weak regime. That regime was supported by USA. This is the plan of the USA. It's not the thing. The plan is to establish a very weak civilian government. Like technocrats. Government, they all believe in the neoliberalism. They all believe the salvation will be coming from the IMF, and so this is all the mindset of that government. What all they did that during Trump time. Trump forced them to pay 365 million to the victims of the attack happening in like Osama bin Laden, and at that time the regime was hosting bin Laden and stuff. So they said, oh, okay, this is a government, you will be fined for all the people who died in that attack, and you pay this money to their family in the USA. So it's 365. This is a condition to start talking to the IMF. If you don't do this, the IMF is not even talking, supporting you, giving you money and stuff. So what the regime, the government at that time, as a result of the negotiations, their main aim is to pay this money, to establish a good relation with the IMF, so they can open foreign investment. That's all what they think. You know, they didn't talk, the party, we were against all this. We think there is a different way to take. It's to focus on our own wealth and to re-establish our different type of relation with the international world, China, Russia. Like we should approach differently. We know the other countries, they have interest, but this is everything. Everyone have interest. This is like you will never find someone come and help you with no any interest. Like this is the basic thing. But we have to negotiate that. So with the US, we don't negotiate. Like we have to do what they being told. That's it. You cannot even negotiate anything. So the party was pushing this, and we proposed a different economical program, like based on like social justice. The like very big different options for what to do for in this situation, to get out of this situation and stuff. But the government, they didn't want that. They throw all these proposals just like this. They did conferences, you know, they organized things for like alternative economical option and stuff, but they didn't take anything as in a very serious way. So, and despite all these things, the army and the militia at that time, they were very close to each other. The one who are fighting now, they were like in a personal level, they are friends. In a personal level, the leaders, the two leaders, they were fighting in west of Sudan together against other groups, so armed groups. So in a personal level, they have very good connection and very good relation. And when it happened in 11 of April 2019, when they did the coup, they did it to stop the development of the movement, the popular movement, to stop it so the transition does not happen completely. They want just to limit it up to here, they take the power and they start doing what they benefit them or acting on behalf. Their main thing is acting on behalf of other big countries' interests. They are protecting the other countries' interests in Sudan. That's all what they are doing now. All this fight, every different things, it's just all managed by foreign parties. So at that time they were together, but what unites them is to stop the popular movement from growing and achieving the demands. And they organized another coup in October 2021. They were because that government I'm talking about, the one they start to establish relation with the US and this is like a civilian cabinet. But the army, they have they're observing what's happening in the civilian government and stuff. So they didn't want the growth even of that regime. That government is very reactionary, but they were still in conflict with them. So they decided to do a coup, to have absolute power, like a military power. So in October 2021, they did the coup. They arrested the prime minister. They just said no government. From since October 22, we don't have any government. The government have one minister, which is one of the groups of the armed group, is the finance minister or something. That's it. He is acting. He can do anything. It's like a very strange situation. Regime, military leadership, and one minister. That's it. That's the whole cabinet of that from October 21. In April, which is this conflict, the conflict start like during that time, the conflict start to happen between the two factions, the militia and the army, and the conflict is all what it's about because the two sides they are supported by two different foreign groups. That's the whole idea. All this conflict is nothing to do with the sharing or between themselves. There is no any differences. They are both army, both against the popular movement, and they agree on that. Like it's no any conflict between them. The whole conflict is like it could be a personal thing, like who can be the president, but also this is supported by foreign influences. And that's where I will talk about the foreign thing. Yeah, the imperialist role in the conflict, it happened for Saudi Arabia. And okay, before I get to that one, the Emirates and Saudi Arabia, they used the militia as a mercenary in their war in Yemen. So they were sending, Sudan were sending soldiers to fight there, they get paid. That's literally how it is a deal. They get paid and they fight on behalf of Emirates and Saudi Arabia in Yemen. So that's how the relation started between Emirates and Saudi Arabia with this militia. That's how the beginning of the cooperation. Later on, the war in Yemen stopped due to different reasons. And what happened is the Emirates, they kept their relation with the militia. The Saudi Arabia, they have some differences between Saudi Arabia and Emirates. They have their own politics. So Saudi Arabia took the path of supporting the army. Emirates supporting the militia. It's a very messy situation. But both, the Emirates support the militia for two reasons. The first one is the gold. The militia, I might miss some bits, in my talk, but I just realized the militia had a very strong wealth. Their wealth built through, since they started cooperating with the regime gives them licenses to search for gold. Sudan is very wealthy in gold. So they start doing this trade, and they have absolute ownership. What they get, it doesn't go through the government. It's just being exported directly to Emirates and Russia. So the Emirates interest with the militia is the gold. That's the first one. The second one is cooperation, because they can use them if they need them as the mercenaries to fight. Emirates has the same relation in Libya with the militia led by someone, his name is Haftar. In Libya also there is some conflicts, and that militia has a very strong relation with the militia in Sudan. They're working together. That's the first interest. The Saudis, their interest with the army, and they want the army. Egypt, they have a very strong relation with the army, and they want the army to be in power. Egyptian, they focus on water. That's the main thing for Egypt, because the Nile River and the Ethiopia is building a big dam. That will affect on the percentage of water will reach Egypt. And so they want the Sudan government to be supporting their agenda and demand more percentage to Egypt. So, and that's like the main thing. The army in Sudan, they said, it's okay, we give you. Sudan, from this water, the Nile River, we are getting only 18%. Egypt, 48%. And the biggest part of the Nile River is going in Sudan. The biggest, in terms of land and stuff. But we are getting nothing out of this water and stuff. And these agreements were organized during the colonization, and they never been changed. So now, because Ethiopia is building this dam, they had to renegotiate the percentage. And they want to use the Sudan in their interest and stuff. Russia, the same thing. Russia, they have a very strong relation with the militia. A day before the war in Ukraine, the leader of the militia was in Russia. He visited Russia. He met with Putin. He's just a militia leader. He met with Putin, and the whole deal was gold. Nothing else, not army, not to send anyone to fight there, it's just a gold. The militia sent more than 20 tons of gold on that day, just to balance the economy of Russia during the war. And they are still supporting. The Russian airplane, they fly to that area. The area of the gold controlled by this militia. It's in the west of Sudan, very close to Chad and Libya, that area is in the desert. They just fly from there. They don't go, just plane come from Russia, take the gold, go back. That's how it's, yeah. So the Russians supporting the militia through Wagner. So Wagner, the militia, the Russian militia, they are existing in Sudan since 2017. They were brought by the regime at that time, before to start their relation with the militia, to train the Sudanese army. So they get to use them to stop the popular movement, the protest and stuff like that, just to see how they can do it. There are videos during our uprising in 2018. You see the Russian in the big trucks in the protest, in our protest, just observing how the protest is getting organized, what to do and stuff, and they give feedback to the security forces, to the army, how to deal with it. So that's the beginning of the cooperation with the Wagner militia. But after that, because of the militia in Libya, the Wagners also have some involvement there, and Central of Africa, the Russians also have involvement through their militia. And this group, the militia, our militia, we call it Janjaweed. I don't know if you heard this word or not. The Janjaweed, it's so they are in the west of Sudan. So that area is like Russian have a lot of influence in that area and involvement, and that's why they try to build this relation with the militia. That's one of their main interests, to link to their networking through the militia, not through the army, because the militia has the flexibility of moving from country to another country, and that area is very open. Go to Libya, you go to Chad, you go to Central Africa, you go to Niger. Like it's very easy for them to move around there and stuff. So that's the interest of the Russian, plus the goal. And now in this war, what's happening? The Russians provide armed aid through Wagners, and they fly from Syria. They have a military base in Syria. They fly from Syria to Libya, and from Libya to Sudan. They drop the arms there to this militia. So they get weaponized so they can continue their fight and stuff like this. And that's one of the other one. And one of the other countries, the US. USA is a little bit confusing. When you look at whatever they announce, like in their statements and stuff, you think they are below the army. Like they are supporting the army and stuff, and they are leading some of the negotiation between the army and the militia in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia and US, they initiated the negotiations, the peace negotiation. And so that's a bit like, from their statements, you think they are pro the army. I am a bit confused actually in the American, like the US interest, because both sides they follow. That's the worst situation. Those two groups fighting, they will do anything to anyone. They don't care, about US or Russia and stuff. Whatever they got told, they will do. But it depends on the other side to choose which one they want, which side of this fighting group they want to do their interest in Sudan and stuff. But I think from my understanding and reading, the US is pro the army. Despite they don't have problems with the militia, they don't have anything to do any problems, but they support the army. I don't know why. I don't understand why they support that and stuff, but like from me, I witnessed and observed, I think they are pro the army. And this is like the foreign factors in our, like in the situation now. What we demand as a lefty or a communist, we think this revolution should be continuing despite this situation. Like the war happening in Khartoum, the capital city, and west of Sudan. The rest of Sudan, there is no war. It's controlled by the army, the rest of Sudan. So we think people, the resistance committees, I didn't mention resistance committee before, but the resistance committees, they are organizations in different suburbs in Sudan, in each suburb actually, and they have activists, group of activists. They are from different type of politics and stuff, but they came together and they established this group. They call themselves resistance committee of the suburb, like of certain suburb names and stuff. And they led this uprising since 2018. So, and these groups, actually the initiative of this type of organization is done by the Communist Party since 2010. The Communist Party called to organize in the suburbs by this type of groups. They have to organize so they can lead the struggle against the regime and stuff. So these groups now they are very strong. like really very strong, and they are existing everywhere, resistance committees and stuff. So what we call from the party now in the Khartoum, for example, we encourage them to be, because they are volunteers, now they change from confronting the regime and demanding political demand, they just become like volunteers, helping people who are get shots, helping hospitals, bringing food, water. They are young people. Like so in the suburbs, they try to fetch water for families and stuff like this. So the party called for, like, we encourage this as part, we do know this is a volunteer, humanitarian based type of activism or movement, but it's very easy to shift back to a political if the people is still organized in these bodies, in their movement, even in the humanitarian aid and stuff. So this is one of the lines. We encourage these lines to be continuing, and after that's in this side, in the affected area. In the other areas, we call for stop the war. The first thing, we don't want any international intervention in the war, and we call in the general thing is the accountability of these two generals from what they committed, and the killing and the destruction. And also we call for opening safe passages for people to move, because it's very intense, like you can't move from A to Z and stuff like it. Sometimes it gets very crazy and stuff. And everyone here, like sitting here in this room, Sudanese, they will have a tragedy happening to their families, including myself. My house, our houses are robbed, and everything, destruction and stealing and all these things. And some people have the worst, like if they get killed or bombed, the bomb fall in their house and stuff like this. And okay, and that's the main demands. Like and the next government, it should know it if it happened. We are just struggling and continuing. No representation for the army. Like the army should go back to the barracks, never get involved in politics, and the dissolution of the militia. No militias should be existing in the political scene and stuff. That's the last bit, just very last, like 5 minutes. It's the class nature of this regime. The class nature, how we define it. These groups, they are both belong to. We have our own terms of capitalism, because capitalism has a different forms here. So our capitalism is not a productive capitalism. It's not, they don't own factory to exploit the workers. They trade, we call them the parasite capitalism. Like the type of the investment is all about commissions, corruption, using the existing capitalist type of factories and stuff, and force them to pay a lot of taxes or corruption to facilitate their operational things and stuff. This is how they live. The leadership of the army, this is a fact, you will be surprised. The army own 80% of the total income of the economy in Sudan. 80%. Oh, they own everything, and we don't know where this money goes. Nobody knows. This is all gone to the pockets of the leader of the top of the army. It's not even used to produce, like, to make arms or to buy arms or something. It's just 100% corruption. In the other side, the militia, they trade in gold. That's their main thing, gold and machineries. And this is when you analyze the source of wealth of this the top groups and stuff. And this is what the fight is about. It's all how to keep this wealth. And to do this, they get involved in international and work as proxy for other governments or other countries, and so they can sustain this wealth under their own hands. Thank you. I don't know if I covered everything, but that's thank you.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.